You see the Gemara on the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So Be'ezras Hashem, today's daf is going to be daf Chav Ches. Okay, daf Chav Ches. And we're going to start from daf Chav Zayin Omid Beis by the Mishnah. Very nice, pleasant Gemara. So the Gemara, the Mishnah says like this. A person, we're talking about somebody who's going to make a neder, and it sounds, he makes a full neder, and he means it, but we allow him to explain himself away and undo his own neder. So the Mishnah gives an example. They're Jewish bandits. You know what a Jewish bandit is? Jewish mafia people. And if they come and threaten you, give me your money, or we'll kill you. Okay, the Jewish. Yes. So you're allowed to take a neder and tell him that you want to take this basket of fruits from me. This basket of fruit is truma. Now, what's interesting about these people is that they don't have a problem with stealing people's money, but they don't want to eat truma. So you're saying a neder that this basket is truma to get out from losing them stealing your basket. Noidrin, you're allowed to take a neder that something is truma, okay? That something is truma, we're going to say in that Mishnah, leharogin, somebody who's threatening to kill you because he wants to take your money. Not that he wants to kill you, he wants to take your basket of fruits. And you make a neder that this basket of fruit is truma, you're not going to gain from it. Or for a person lecharamim, just some confiscator, a guy who's a mugger. He's not going to kill you. You're less under stress. He's not really threatening death with you. He just
maybe he's a religious mafia.
Mafia, but he
religious mafia.
Yeah, right. So that's what it is. So he's telling you, I want to take your basket of fruits, and you're saying, oh, I make a neder, it's truma. So for a non-kohen to eat truma is misa b'dei shemayim, so he's not going to take the fruit when you tell him that. Or la muchsin. Muchsin is a tax collector. There were Yiddish tax collectors that bought the right to collect taxes on behalf of the government, and they would come in. They paid the government a certain amount, and then the profit was whatever they were chopping and collecting from the Yidden, they kept for themselves. So you tell this tax collector he's coming to take this fruit, you tell him a neder, she truma, it's truma, and you take this neder, apple pi she'ena truma, even though it's not truma, you take this neder, it's fine, no problem, and you can undo the neder after the situation passes. You can say, let's say the tax collector, this is what it's going on. The tax collector says, give me this possession, these items, these things that you have. And you say, Shehein shel beis hamelech. This is something that's the property of the federal government. It's not mine. It's just in my house, but it doesn't belong to me. You take a neder, I make a neder that these items belong to the king. Afal pi she'eina shel beis hamelech, even though they're not the king's, you're allowed to take this neder to save yourself a couple of months of not being mugged and robbed. That's basically what it is. Now, this is a little different. You're not an oinus taking this neder. You're just trying to protect your assets. So you're a little bit under duress. So you really, if you took a neder and you're not going to explain yourself how it's not a neder, you really have a neder in place. So we're going to talk about that in the Gemara. How does it become undone? That's first thing in the Mishnah. Beis Shammai Oimrim. Beis Shammai gives you this right to get out of this neder is only if you said neder. I make a neder. Bakol noidrin. You're allowed to, for all these people, you can take a neder. But we go to Ches, Chav Ches, chutz mi bashvua. You can't swear that it's truma. You can't swear that this items belong to the federal government. That doesn't work. That's one. Beis Hillel says af b'shvua. And Beis Hillel says you could also swear. You got it? Beis Hillel says you could even swear that it's truma. Beis Shammai says lo yiftach loy beneder, which means don't, when the mugger and the robber and the vandal comes to you, don't tell him I make a neder. Don't open up and say I can take a neder that's truma. If you say it's truma, and then he says, if it's truma, you take a neder, then you can say a neder, but don't offer a neder. Basil says, af yiftach. You could even offer a neder to say the neder under such a situation, even if he didn't ask you to take a neder. And then the third thing that there's machlokes between Beishamai and Basil. Beishamai says, Bameh shehu madiroi. You can only take a neder if he tells you exactly what to say in your neder. Basil says, af b'meh she'ena madira. You can take a neder even on something that was not. He didn't ask you to take a neder, and you're adding to what the neder he's requiring you to do. And the Mishnah explains you this last machlokes. Heitzad. Amaloi, the robber said, right? You're telling me it's truma, Emar, then you should say, koinen ishti nehenesli. I make my wife usher to have any benefit from me if it is truma. So that's what the robber demands from you to say. And so what do to make the point that it's truma? Ba'amar, and you go one step further. Koinen ishti ubanai neheneli. I make a neder that my wife and children should never benefit from me if it's not truma. So really, it's not truma. You just want this robber to go on his way and not take your fruit basket, right? So it turns out it's not truma. Beishamai says, Ishtoi mutaris, your wife, you're permitted to benefit from you. Ubanav asurum, but your sons remain asur to you. Because the robber never asked you, the assailant never asked you to to include your children in that neder. And therefore your sons remain asur. Basil says, Elu ve'elu mutarim. Once any neder that's made under this kind of, I wouldn't say it's duress, but I would say it's more of like you're fully yourself. There's a way to be matter this whole neder, self-matter the whole neder, and self-undo the entire neder. And not only that, you can undo the neder for your wife, but also for your children. So first, the Gemara deals with a very interesting question, and you wouldn't think that the Gemara discusses such an issue. The Gemara asks, "How are you allowed to fool the tax collector and hide and say, oh, this is not my items, this is truma items, or this is belongs to the federal government, and you make a neder so." Shmuel, how do you allow to take away and not pay your taxes? Dina de malchusa dina. Whatever the law of the kingdom, that's the law that we have to keep. And this is very important throughout Shas, that we always believe that if it's a fair law, there's no way that a Jew can get around it. He should not try to break the law or slip around the law. He has to keep the law the way it is. And this is Paskin in Shulchan Aruch. So how is it you're allowed to hide your assets from the tax collector? Omar of Chanina, Omar of Kahana, Omar Shmuel. The moiches she'ein lo kitzba. We're talking about a tax collector that really has no set amount. In other words, he is a tax collector that, let's say, he already paid the taxes to the government for the right to collect the taxes. Now, it's up to him to collect more than what he paid the government on behalf of the city. And therefore, he decides, I'm going to take 80% from you, 50% from you, 30% from you. He has a little police force that comes around with him. So therefore, it's an unfair tax. It's not a set amount. And since it's being unfair, you're allowed to hide your assets and protect your assets from not paying this kind of tax because it's unfair. The Bei Rabbi says that our Mishnah is not talking about the tax that you pay to the government, but it's a mafia tax. If you remember in the 70s when you had to pay the mob protection, that kind of protection, right? You wanted to pay protection so that they don't bomb your store. So Bei Rabbi says, it's a tax collector that's not sent from the government. He's doing it on his own. He's like a mafia person. So there, you're allowed to not pay him and work your way to try to avoid paying such a person. And you're saying this belongs to the federal government, or this. So the Gemara asks, this is truma. Heichi nodar. How do you make a neder like that? A neder is usually, I asser this. I am assering something to be asser to me as a carbon. But you can't promise that this is federal government property. That's not a neder. Remember, a neder has to prohibit something on somebody. And just confirming what something is not called a neder. So how do you explain the Mishnah? Amar Rav Amram Amar Rav. Rav Amram said in the name of Rav, our Mishnah is talking about, Ba'omer, this is the case of our Mishnah. And he's saying a nice neder. Ya'asru peres b'ha'olam olai. All fruits in the world should be asa to me. I can never have another apple, peach, pear, plum. It should all be asa to me. In einon shel beis hamelech. If this item over here is not the property of the king, that's the way you're taking the neder. It's not the property of the federal government. If it's not, then everything in the world should be asa. So the Gemara says, but then how do you undo the neder by yourself? Remember, you're self-undoing the neder. And if you said a very clear neder, Kevon the Amar Asru, Itasra alai kol pera alma. Then once you said that everything should be usser, then every fruit in the world is usser. So how are you fixing yourself? You already said a neder. Answers the Gemara, Ba'oimer hayoim. You said that all the fruits of the world should be usser to me for one day, if this is not federal government property. And that's how the neder gets undone, because the next day, tomorrow, you're allowed to have the fruits of the world because there's no neder. It's only the neder. The neder was only supposed to last for one day. So the Gemara says, if that's your neder, then the tax collector is not going to believe you because it's so easy to keep such a neder. Either Omar Hayoim lo mikabel minei moiches. Then the tax collector is not going to believe you. Because he, of course, you can make such a neder. All the fruits in the world should be also for me for a 24-hour period if this is not federal government property. So obviously, he's not going to accept that as proof that what you're saying is true because it's such an easy neder to keep. Answers the Gemara, you did not say the word hayoin, but you said all the fruits of the world should be usher to me, but you didn't specify amount, how long. In your heart, you said, my heart, I think my neder should last for one day. And when it came out of your lips, bistam, without specifying the amount of your neder. You didn't specify, it's totally anonymous. You didn't give it a specific. Now, when you say, Ya'asru pesos oil malai, if you don't say a time amount, it's assumed that you mean forever. But since you're making this type of neder under a certain type of duress, stress, because you want to, not to pay this tax, so then this is the loophole. You say it in such a way that it sounds to the tax collector that you're answering the payers forever if what you're saying is not true. And then in your heart, you're saying, I only want this neder for a day. That's what I really meant. And when he leaves, you just say out loud that the neder was only for a day. That's what I was thinking in my heart. And you self-undid the neder. That's what it's being. The afagav, even though the svir lam dvarim shabaleid ein in dvarim, that the Gemara says, since we always know what's in your heart doesn't count. It's what comes out of your mouth. And so I would think, l'chaira, that since you said the fruit should forever be asur, they're asur for the rest of your life. But since you could say that maybe you meant for a day, legabe aynasin, on this type of stressful situation that you're making this neder, shani, it's a little different. And the Chachamim gave you a leeway to undo the neder by yourself because they understood that you're making this neder to try to not be ripped off by somebody taking your hard-earned money. The Gemara the Mishnah just said, Beishame Aimem Bamahu Madiroi, Ubeisilla Aimer Af Beshaina Madira. We learned in the Mishnah that you're only allowed to have the neder on what he's requesting you to make a neder. And Beisila says you're allowed to even add to that neder. Ketzat, this is what we learned in the Mishnah. Amalai, if the man says, the assailant says, Kaina Mishti Nehenesli, I want you to take a neder that you ask your wife from from ever having hana from you, if what you're saying is true. If what you're saying is not true. And he says, and he says, kind of ishti bonai nehenini. He says, I want to answer both my wife and my son. That's how confident what I'm saying is true. Obviously, it turns out to be not true, because when the robber leaves, you obviously what you said was just to get the robber to leave your house. But the items that you say are truma is not really truma. So Beis Shammai says, ishta muteres, for the wife, I could see why you made a neder to answer your wife, because you were under stress. But ubanav asurim, but your children remain asur, because the assailant, the robber, didn't ask you to make a neder against your children. You just added that on, and therefore your sons remain asur. Beis Hillel says elu ve'elu mutarim, both are mutar. Everything goes away. This neder was under stress, and you can self undo the neder. Amar Rav Huna said. He found a brisa that says the same thing between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. And it seems that this brisa is a contradiction to our Mishnah. Let's see the brisa. Tana, we learned in a brisa. Beis Shammai says, Lo yiftach loy b'shvuah. You're not allowed to offer the guy that you're going to swear that it's truma. Well, Beis Hillel says, Af yiftach loy b'shvuah. You're allowed to the guy that you're going to swear it's truma. Even if he didn't ask you, you're allowed to offer, I'm going to swear it's truma. So that's what the brisa says. So the contradiction is, Beis Shammai, according to the Beis Shammai, in this brisa, b'shvuah do lo yiftach loy. You're not allowed to offer a shvuah. Hoben neder yiftach loy. You're allowed to offer that you're going to take a neder. You just can't offer a shvuah, because a shvuah is more strict, and that's why Beis Shammai is. But if that's the case, that Beis Shammai agrees that you're allowed to offer up a neder, well, it's not. But didn't we learn in the Mishnah, Beis Shammai, that's what it says on top of the page. Lo yiftach loy b'neder. You're not allowed to even offer a neder. That's the question. So this brisa seems to contradict our Mishnah. But two, another question is, miftach lo hu yiftach loy b'shvuah. You're not allowed to offer a shvuah. Ha made a neder b'shvuah. But you're allowed to, if he requests that you take a shvuah, if the assailant says, take a shvuah, Beis Shammai says you're allowed to take a shvuah. But our Mishnah says the opposite. Beis Shammai omrim bakol noidrin chutz mib'shvuah. To all these assailants, if they demand from you're only allowed to agree to a neder, but you're not allowed to agree to a shvuah. Shvuah is very strict, and therefore Beis Shammai says you can't offer. You can't even if he demands that you take a shvuah. Otherwise, he doesn't believe you. You're not allowed to say a shvuah. And from this Mishnah, from this brisa that was quoted by Rav Huna, it seems that Beis Shammai was only concerned offering a shvuah. But if you're forced into making a shvuah, Beis Shammai would agree you could make a shvuah. So how do you reconcile this brisa and with our Mishnah? Answers the Gemara, two terutzim. One question is, Tana de Masnisem b'neder lo yachal koichem de Beis Shammai. Our Mishnah really teaches you the power of Beis Shammai. In other words, our Mishnah is just telling you how far Beis Shammai goes. Beis Shammai does not allow you offer anything, and they don't even allow you to make a shvuah, only a neder. So Beis Shammai's position is correct, is expressed correctly in our Mishnah. Tana de Brisa, but the b'shvuah, the Tana de Brisa is discussing shvuah, because it's only trying to express how far Beis Hillel goes. Like Yachal Koichem de Beis Hillel, how far Beis Hillel goes. Beis Hillel holds you're allowed to even offer up a shvuah. You're allowed to offer up, not only could you make a shvuah, you could even offer up a shvuah. So it doesn't concern itself, the brisa, that you're going to misunderstand Beis Shammai, because the brisa is always like an explanation of the Mishnah. So if you're going to really want to understand Beis Shammai's opinion, just look up the Mishnah and you'll see how strict Beis Shammai is, and that's the method of the Mishnah. But the brisa is trying to tell you how lenient Beis Hillel is, who says that if you're under such a stressful situation, you're allowed to offer up to the assailant that you're going to swear that the objects that he wants to take is truma. At one point, Rav Asi says the brisa is not even talking about the assailant. The brisa is not even going on our Mishnah, where you have people trying to take money from you. Hachi Ketani, the brisa is talking about something totally different. If somebody makes a shvuah, can you go to a rabbi and have him give you a heter and undo the shvuah? Can you matter the shvuah? Beis Shammai says, "Ein she'ela b'shvuah." We don't allow midrabanan a rabbi to undo a shvuah. You make a shvuah, not even using the Shem Hashem. You swear. Beis Shammai is strict that you can't go to a rabbi and undo it. Beis Hillel says, "Yesh she'ela b'shvuah." That b'di'eved, the rabbi tries not to undo the shvuah, but in certain circumstances, if he did undo the shvuah could go away. Midoraisa, the truth is that any oath or neder or shvuah that you take, the Torah says, lo yachal devorai, you're not allowed to make your words back into unholy words, profane words, but somebody else can make it profane. Someone else, a bezdin or a yachid mumcha, could take off the shvuah and could take midoraisa. It could work. The question is, midrabanan, how strict were they when it came to a shvuah? Beis Shammai says if you make a shvuah, midrabanan, they don't allow any rabbi to undo the neder. Beis Hillel says yesh she'ela b'shvuah, that we allow rabbis in certain circumstances, even though shvuah is very strict, it's much more severe than a neder. We allow them to take off the neder. New Mishnah. This Mishnah needs an explanation, and the Gemara is going to explain, so we'll wait for that. The Mishnah says, Hare, now we know, let me just tell you, every tree that you have in your backyard, right? Eventually it's going to be chopped down. Maybe not in your lifetime, maybe in years from now. Eventually trees die, and it's going to be it's going to be chopped down. No tree lasts forever. So, but this guy, and this Mishnah is not so related to what we're discussing. It's not about neder, but it's about making something hegdish, donating it to the Beis HaMikdash. So man says, Harei netiyas ha'elu carbon. I want my saplings, small trees, should be like hegdish, and einon niktzotzos, if they never get cut down. Well, so that makes no sense, because every tree gets cut down. So you're saying it's going to be donated to hegdish if it never gets cut down. But that's an impossibility. It's certainly going to get cut down, maybe hundreds of years later, but it's going to get cut down. So, but the Mishnah is going to say that your neder took effect, that that it becomes hegdish. Now the question is why? Yeah. So the question is why? So that's the question. Again, talazu carbon, you say my talis should be donated to the Beis HaMikdash. It has a din of hegdish. In einot nisref, if it doesn't get burned. So there, you're saying if it doesn't get burnt, it should be hegdish. So maybe a talis can last forever, but eventually a talis gets burnt also, gets destroyed. Yesh lehem pidyon. Yesh lehem pidyon means it belongs to hegdish. And in fact, you're required to redeem you can't donate a tree to hegdish. How is hegdish going to do the tree? That what you do is you transfer the money, the value of the tree or the value of the talis onto money, and then you're required to give that money to hegdish. So we need to understand what the first part of the Mishnah is. Why does it take effect? Harei netiyas ha'elu carbon. Now here you say, I want my tree to be as hegdish ad sheyikatzutzu, until it's cut down. So it should be hegdish until it gets cut down. Now, talazu carbon ad shetisaref. This talis should be hegdish until it gets burned down. So that's also shver, because what happens after it gets cut down? It's not hegdish anymore. So the Mishnah says it always remains hegdish, and we go to Amud Beis, ein lehem pidyon. It's hegdish, and not only that, you have to actually give the talis to the Beis HaMikdash. You have to give the tree to the Beis HaMikdash. You can't transfer the value of the tree or the value of the talis on money. So this Mishnah is like a whole Mishka Babel, and let's try to understand it. So, first of all, the Gemara first asks the question, and then explains the Mishnah. Why does its Mishnah say ein lem pidyon and yesh lem pidyon? The Mishnah should say, does it become hegdish or not? The Lishni, let the Mishnah say kedoshos, the ein kedoshos. Does it become holy or does it not become holy? And in both cases, it does become holy. So why does it say if you can redeem it? Redeeming is a side point about Hegdish. When you donate something, first you have to establish whatever you're donating, whether you're donating a vase to the Beis Hamikdash, first you have to understand that it becomes Hegdish. Then you can say, now that the vase is holy, you can pite it. So the point is that the Mishnah should say if it becomes Hegdish or not. Does the talus or the tree become Hegdish or not? So the Gemara answers, the reason why it uses the language of whether you could redeem it, I did the boy lemisna seifa, because the end of the Mishnah has to say ein lehem pidyon. The end of the Mishnah is actually telling you that it is holy. So, but it's a type of holy that's much stricter than any other holiness. If I donate anything to Beis Hamikdash, I donate my car to the Beis Hamikdash, my car could have a pidyon. I could donate and say the kedusha of my car should go on this money, and then don't send a check off to the Beis Hamikdash. But this end of the Mishnah, the way you worded the end of the Mishnah of a guy said that the tree should be kedusha until it gets cut down, it's basically you say that it should be such a kedusha that you cannot redeem it. I want this tree to always have this holiness, and therefore you can't transfer the kedusha money. So therefore, since the end of the Mishnah has to be such a case where it's holy and there's no redemption, they don't give you the way out to redemption. So therefore, since the end of the Mishnah has to talk about redemption, so the first case of the Mishnah, although the point of the first case of the Mishnah that it does become holy, also says it in such a way that it's whole, that not only is it holy, but you could be paided, obviously. Now the Gemara says, what's this Mishnah talking about? So Heichen Nadar, how did he make this neder? I pointed out to the question is, every time, every tree is going to get knocked down. So how does the neder make it holy? What was the first case in the Mishnah? You say, all these trees should be Hegdish if it never gets cut down. Well, every tree is going to get cut down, so therefore it should never become Hegdish. So how did you make this neder? Answers the Gemara, and this is what the whole point of the Mishnah is. Ba'omer, a person says, if it never gets cut down today, which a typical day, a tree is not getting cut down, and then it becomes Hegdish. If this tree does not get cut down today, it does not, collapse today, then it becomes Hegdish, it belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. The day passed, and the tree did not get cut down. So the Mishnah tells you, then if that's what you said, then tree becomes Hegdish. So the Gemara's catch question is, in Cain Lama Lila Meimar, what is the novelty of this Mishnah? Pshita, it's obvious. If you said that my tree in my backyard, if it doesn't get cut down for one day, if it lasts for one day, then the whole tree, I'm donating the whole tree, the value of the tree to the Beis Hamikdash. Of course. What's the novelty? Of course it's a valid neder. Like Tzricha, the Gemara says, Kegoin the Ikazik and Afisha. There was this huge hurricane, okay? And you're thinking to yourself, and this is where you got to think, and we'll speak it out in a second. You're thinking to yourself, wow, this hurricane is going to blow down this tree. I'm 100% sure that this hurricane is going to blow down the tree. So you say, if it doesn't blow down the tree, because in my mind, this tree is a goner, but if it doesn't blow down the tree, then I wanted to give it to Hegdish. So now it's a novelty, because what happened was the hurricane did not blow down your tree. Now you probably would regret saying such a statement, because you never imagined that the tree would not get blown down. So therefore, it could be that you never had in mind, and you weren't like full with your heart, 100%, that you want to give this tree to Hegdish. So I would think that this is not a good donation. So that's the chiddush that Kamash Malan, that you're never 100% sure that it's going to fall down, that it's going to be knocked down. You think most likely this is going to get knocked down in this hurricane. But if it turns out that it doesn't, then you're really happy to give the whole tree to the Beis Hamikdash. And that's the chiddush of the Mishnah. And the same thing about Hokatani Lake Gabi Talis. What's the story by the Talis? The Talis is getting burnt. The Talis L'Sreifa Kaima. The second case of the Mishnah is that if my Talis doesn't get burnt, then I'm donating it to the Beis Hamikdash. What's that case? So the Gemara says, yes, going to Ika the Leka. There's this massive fire in the house, and everything is getting burned. So you say to yourself that I'm thinking that my talis is going to get burned. And therefore, if it doesn't get burnt, which is I'm almost 100% sure that's not going to be the case, then I'm giving it to the Beis Hamikdash. So Hachinami, same thing. The first case, the Ikazika Nefisha, there's this huge hurricane. So basically, you're guaranteeing in your mind, we're thinking that you're guaranteeing in your mind that this tree is a goner, this tree and this talus is a goner. The South Gedaitach, I would have thought the Masaka Daiti, the Loy Mis Natslam, that what's really going through your mind is that these items will never be saved, that the tree is going to be gone, the talus is going to be gone because there's a fire and there's a big hurricane. And that's why you made the neder. So that's the novelty of the Mishnah. Kamash Malan, that's what the Mishnah is teaching you. That when you make such a kind of a neder, really, you're never 100% sure that the talus is going to be gone, but with the fire and the tree is going to fall down. You're almost sure, but there is room to believe that it's not going to happen. And nevertheless, you say that if it doesn't happen, I'm so happy to donate it to the Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, it is considered a good neder. So that's why the Mishnah says in the beginning, if a man says that my tree should be a donation to the Beis Hamikdash, if it never gets cut down by this hurricane, and it turns out it was not cut down by the hurricane, or this talus didn't get burned despite this huge fire, and it did not get burned, you're obligated to give this talus and tree to the Beis Hamikdash, and it has a kedusha dik. And if you don't want to give it to the Beis Hamikdash, you can transfer the value of the talus, the value of the tree, onto money, and then send a check to the Beis Hamikdash. And that's the first case of the Mishnah. Okay, that's it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.